Y'all ready out there? Very good. Well, good morning, everybody. Great, thank you for being here. My name is Aaron Ford, and I'm your Attorney General. I'm accompanied by my colleague, our Secretary of State, and we call you here today to discuss the most recent egregious overreach by the Trump administration. I'm also joined by my colleagues, my First Assistant, Craig Newby, and my Chief of Special Litigation, Keir Ireland, and I want to specifically thank Mr. Ireland for his tireless work on the litigation that we're here to discuss today. We all live in a country where we're blessed to have democracy as the paramount rule under which we live. This democracy, these values of civic participation, is what makes America, America. Our elections are sacrosanct. Our great American experiment relies upon the participation of everyone to ensure those in our capital are true representatives of the people. This administration is now attempting to insert the federal government illegally and unconstitutionally into the election processes that are run by the states under the explicit text of the Constitution. Let me be clear, Nevada's elections are free, fair, and safe. The notion that the federal government must get involved in states' electoral processes is a direct attack on Nevadans' constitutional right to vote. Not only is it a sham, it is illegal and it is unconstitutional. Today, I'm proud to announce that my colleague and I are filing a lawsuit to stop this unconstitutional order. Nevada is leading the lawsuit, joined with co-leads Massachusetts, Washington, and California. Our lawsuit states that neither the Constitution nor an act of Congress confers upon the president the authority to mandate sweeping changes to states' electoral systems or procedures. The president's illegal executive order creates a shadow voter eligibility list within the federal government, and it threatens to coerce states into disenfranchising voters missing from those lists. The executive order also directly interferes with mail voting by mandating the USPS, the Postal Service, to refuse to deliver voted ballots unless the voters are on a post office pre-cleared list, a list maintained outside of control of the states. The executive order also attempts to lengthen the existing period for elections officials to preserve election records. This lengthened period is designed to aid the prosecutions threatened by the president to coerce Nevada and other states into disenfranchising voters. We are seeking immediate and permanent relief to stop these illegal actions from going into effect. We will always stand up for the rights of Nevadans. The president attempts to justify his illegal power grab with baseless and tired conspiracy theories about voter fraud. But the fact of the matter is, our Secretary of State, Secretary Aguilar, has done a tremendous job in administering Nevada's elections, along with our county clerks elected by the people in this state. Nevada's elections are extraordinarily safe and they are secure. I've always said that if someone brings legitimate evidence of voter fraud to my attention, I will seek justice. And I have. We've prosecuted a handful of cases in the elections context where those have committed fraud since I've assumed office. And that's hardly a deluge. I cannot stress this point enough. Voter fraud is exceedingly rare and it does not affect the outcome of elections. The point is, we take this seriously. We investigate all credible allegations and we bring charges if someone has violated the law. Voter fraud, as I've long said, damages the trust that many have in our democratic institutions, and it cannot be tolerated. It has not been tolerated in my administration. However, there are simply not enough credible allegations of voter fraud, either in Nevada or in states, to justify their use as a talking point to restrict access to the ballot. It's disingenuous and it damages the trust in our democratic institutions. The president continues to overstep his powers. He continues to violate our laws and he continues to infringe on our rights. The fact is, when he oversteps, I have been and will be here to stand up for Nevadans' constitutional rights. My colleagues will be here. The justice system will be here. I will stand against any effort by this president to illegally interfere with the sovereignty of Nevada. I will not hand wave away any attempts to trample on our Constitution. I'm a staunch defender of our system of government and our way of life. I'm fighting to ensure that Nevada remains a free and a sovereign state in our great union. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to offer the podium to my colleague, our Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. As the AG mentioned, today we are standing up against the Trump administration's latest executive order, which attempts to illegally change our elections. Nevadans deserve leadership. As Secretary of State, I am the Nevada's Chief Elections Officer. It's my responsibility to call balls and strikes. And with this new executive order, the president is trying to change the rules in the middle of the game. He spent years attempting to manufacture a crisis around mail voting when he just recently voted by mail, when there is none in Nevada. Any claims that there is widespread fraud in our elections are false and create chaos and confusion for voters in the middle of an election year. First things first, this executive order on elections is illegal. The Constitution makes it clear. States run elections. One person cannot come in and decide to make sweeping changes. Nevada knows what's best for its citizens and its voters. We know the systems and processes we have in place work. Nevada runs some of the safest, most secure, and accessible elections in the country. They are trusted. They are represented by nonpartisan elections officials. These are your neighbors and friends, not some politician from Washington. We know that people trust their local elections officials and poll workers, and they will continue doing what they need to do to continue delivering safe elections in Nevada. Election planning starts years in advance, not 60 days before an election. Elections officials started planning for this day after the 2024 presidential election. They are working hard to ensure every eligible voter, and only every eligible voter, has access to the ballot box this year. There are two main points of the executive order I want to address: mail ballots and the national voter list. Nevada is already in compliance with much of what the executive order calls for when it comes to mail ballots. Every mail ballot has a unique barcode associated with one voter. This ensures not only that the voter it's assigned is able to vote that ballot, but it also notifies us when someone votes their mail ballot and then attempts to vote in person. If that happens, the person won't be allowed to cast that second ballot, and an investigation will begin immediately. We partnered with the United States Postal Service in every election to ensure the mail ballot design is appropriate and consistent, and also for ballot tracking to bring transparency to voters. Nevada is a diverse state. We have a 24/7 economy, and mail ballots help working voters get their votes in when it's convenient for them. We are also very rural. Mail ballots have helped rural and tribal voters tremendously. No matter a voter's location or political party, Nevadans continue to demand mail ballots. In the 2024 presidential election, the counties with the highest mail ballot turnout were some of our most rural counties. The vast majority of Nevada voters, approximately 86% of current active registered voters, have used a mail ballot since 2022. It allows them the freedom to vote in a way that works for them. The other part of the executive order I'm more concerned about is the national voter list. It calls for states to hand over sensitive voter data to the Department of Homeland Security and to other federal agencies so they can create this national list and verify eligibility of every voter. We've already seen issues with the SAVE program, which has flagged eligible voters in Nevada as ineligible at high rates. In other words, some US citizens have been prevented from voting. Nevada's county clerks work very hard to maintain the voter rolls, and they do a great job of it. We are a transient state, and so the voter rolls need consistent maintenance. We work with several states and other organizations to update the list when a voter dies, moves, or otherwise ineligible. The president and many others have continued claims that non-citizens are voting, and that's just not true. It's illegal for non-citizens to vote in Nevada, and we have several steps to verify the eligibility of our voters. This, combined with ICE efforts by the president across the country, and confusion about whether or not ICE will be present at polling locations, is an attempt to create fear among the community of eligible voters. As Nevada's first Latino Secretary of State, it's been very upsetting to see the continued efforts to intimidate and vilify us. Latinos make up 30% of Nevada's voters, and we need them to show up and vote and hold our elected officials accountable. I will continue fighting against any attempts to silence any of our voters. I'm grateful to the partnership with the Attorney General Ford, and his team to ensure we have a strong argument and unified front against this illegal executive order. Before I open it up to questions, I want to speak directly to the moment we are in, to the president, and to anyone who would seek to undermine our elections. Hear this clearly. The voice of Nevada voters will not be silenced. Here in Nevada, we believe in access, in transparency, and in the fundamental right of every eligible voter to be heard. That right does not come from Washington. It comes from the people. And to our voters, your voice is your power. Use it, participate, stay engaged, because in Nevada, our democracy works when you do. Now I'll open up for questions. Thank you.
Victoria with Fox 5. You mentioned the president was changing rules in the middle of the game. June primaries, June election is right around the corner. How do you anticipate this would possibly affect election and voter turnout?
First, the primary will be run as the primary has always been run in Nevada in a safe, secure, and accessible way. Where the rules would change potentially is for the general election. And that's why we're filing suit now to delay that implementation, to argue that it does not need to be implemented so that we can continue to have the elections that we've had. There's consistency for the voters to avoid that chaos and to avoid the confusion. Imagine being in the Super Bowl or the World Series playoffs, and you're in a playoff game and you play that playoff game under one set of rules. And all of a sudden you make it to the championship or you make the Super Bowl or the World Series, and all of a sudden the rules are different. Fans would go absolutely nuts if that were to happen. And it's the same in our elections. Voters deserve consistency, they deserve confidence in the process, and they deserve to be able to work on the rules that were set prior to the election coming.
So this is probably directed more at the Attorney General, but last month, Governor Lombardo told the ND that he generally isn't made aware of the lawsuits that are filed by the Attorney General's office beforehand, and he finds out about them in the news. I was wondering if that was true, and if you made him aware of this lawsuit.
Well, that's a bit off topic, frankly. What I will say is it's an inaccurate statement to indicate that my office doesn't have constant communication with Joe Lombardo's cabinet. Every single day, individuals in my office are communicating. Kill Ireland is a prime example. Communicating with the administration, the department heads, you name it, to talk about things that we need for lawsuits that we're contemplating even before we file. So it's an entire misstatement, in fact, a lie, to indicate that my office doesn't advise the governor in his administration of things that we're about to do. That said, I'm here today with a true partner in protecting our elections. We talked about mail-in voting. Governor Lombardo himself has now advocated for the abolition of mail-in voting. He himself has voted by mail. I am standing with a true partner who is going to stand up for the voices of this state. It gave me chills to hear our Secretary of State stand up for not just some, but all in our community, especially the immigrant community that has been so vilified, not only by the president, but frankly by the governor. And what we're looking to do is to ensure that this sacrosanct right to vote is going to be authorized to be utilized, and it will be as it has always been, fair, free, and safe.
Do you know if Governor supported this lawsuit?
I did not tell him about this. My client on this particular matter stands beside me right here. And we have been communicating about this. He is the chief elections officer in the state, actively engaged. We communicate quite frequently as well on issues, and he's the one that we've been communicating with to ensure that we are defending Nevadans' right to vote from federal overreach. Next question.
Michael Lyle from Nevada Current, kind of along with similar lines. I guess what role do you think the governor's office should take, or what responsibility his office should take about standing up and talking about the impact that this could have on Nevada voters?
Well, look, I don't want to get this sidetracked to talk about the governor. The fact of the matter is our Secretary of State and I are here to defend the electoral opportunities that Nevadans have that are being infringed upon right now by our federal administration that is hell-bent on undermining the integrity of our elections and casting doubt on those elections. To be sure, the governor should be defending our elections with us. The governor should be advocating for the sovereignty of our state in the same way that we are, to ensure that people in this state have their voices heard and their votes are able to be counted.
The president had said that states who don't comply with this, he's threatening to pull federal funding. Do you think he's bluffing? If not, are you guys ready to take that threat on?
No, I appreciate the question because again, something in this executive order is not there is funding. This is an unfunded mandate on local governments and state governments. You look at local governments, especially in our rural communities, and look at the resources they have available to them. They're running on a shoestring budget. And for the president to pass this mandate on to taxpaying Nevadans is really unfair. If they truly believed in reforming the process or working with us, there are avenues and ways to do that. One is to work with the legislature and the governor to come up with policies that better serve Nevadans or work with us to improve the system. The other is to provide funding. The federal government has failed and taken away funding for cybersecurity. We know cybersecurity is a priority for voters across the state that builds the confidence into the process and the system. The fact that they've taken away that funding and ordered us to do more with less is unfair. 15 of our 17 clerks are elected in their local communities. 13 of them are Republican. They are working hard every single day to do the job they need to do. Elections are not their only jobs. The clerks in the rural counties have 3 or 4 other jobs that they must do and do it with resources that are limited. That's not fair to put more pressure and more burden on them.
Another issue that Trump has made sort of key to election security is about voter ID, which is on the ballot in Nevada this year. I'm wondering if either of you have decided if you're going to vote on that question or support that ballot initiative.
Again, I think the ballot is a personal choice, and I think the anonymity of the ballot is an important part of the process. It's constitutionally guaranteed to us, so I choose not to share that information with you. But I think on voter ID, I think you've seen the numbers that 73% approve that in 24. We know it's going to be on the 26th ballot. But again, it's allowing states to make that decision. It's allowing Nevada voters to make that decision, not a single politician making the decision for Nevadans.
You know, my position on voter ID has been clear from the beginning. I believe it is a ruse to disenfranchise individuals to vote. I agree that the ballot box is sacred and secret, but I will tell you I am voting against the voter ID method. And I will tell you why. As a general matter, now you asked the question, it's going to get wonky. But as a general matter, here is how I view this question of voter ID. It sounds decent. It sounds appropriate when someone says something like you need an ID to buy beer or you need an ID to buy cigarettes or an ID to get on a plane. And look, that's entirely correct. There's a different rule, however, not one that I made up, the one that our Supreme Court has made up that says when you're talking about a constitutional right, buying cigarettes is not, getting on a plane is not, then you have to have specific reasons for adding any new requirement to exercising that right. So when it comes to voter ID, it's talking about the constitutional right to vote. And the Supreme Court has said you have to have what's called a compelling reason to do it. And then what it is you're going to do to try to get to that compelling reason has to be narrowly tailored to get there. And so when you ask someone who's advocating for voter ID, what's their compelling reason? They claim voter fraud. You've heard us talk today about voter fraud and how woefully insufficient of an excuse that really is. It is a de minimis amount of voter fraud that exists, insufficient to require a brand new requirement to exercise that right. And for that reason, it begs the question to me, if voter fraud is not by courts, by the way, sufficient to establish a brand new right, what's your real reason for wanting to institute a voter ID? And when you look at who's more negatively affected by voter ID, our veterans communities, our seniors, communities of color, then it becomes readily apparent that the real reason for voter ID is to disenfranchise those voters who would be most disenfranchised by voter ID. I will not stand by idly and support such an affront to the constitutional right to vote. Listen, I'm an African American from the South. My parents, my grandparents were disallowed the right to vote under silly strict restrictions like how many Marlboros are in a jar, how many hairs are on your head. This is not as overt, but it's entirely within the same vein of looking to find out ways to stop people from exercising that right. I will not stand for it. And I will gladly say I'm not going to be voting in favor of a voter ID bill that I know has the ultimate intent to stop people from exercising the right to vote, period.
And to sum up what the Attorney General said is, it's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Nevada has the safest, secure, and transparent elections in the country, and we're proud of that effort. We've made significant strides over the last 3 years to make our elections even safer and more secure by the implementation of the voter registration election management system, and also to bring the counties in uniformity of how we process our elections. We need to focus on the issues that really impact people from going to the polls, and it's this chaos that's coming from Washington.
We've got time for probably about 2 more questions.
Are there any questions online?
Oh, yeah. Did you check online?
Well, did either of your offices get a chance to speak with the Trump administration before he signed the executive order?
No, and that's one of the comments I make all the time is if you're going to make a policy decision in Washington, you should contact the local people that it's going to impact. Again, as I stated, 13 of our 15 local clerks are Republican. I'm sure they would love the ability to have a conversation about what their challenges are, what they face on a daily basis, and what are some of the solutions to those challenges. No, there's been no communication with the administration on this issue before it was received.
To the question about what the governor should be doing, though, he has said time and again that he has a direct line of communication with the president. He should be utilizing that. I will tell you what, it won't be his direct line of communication that stops this illegal and unlawful act from taking place. It's my lawsuit that's going to do that. And we're going to continually stand up for constitutional rights of every Nevadan in here, especially in a circumstance like this where we know that it's stepping on us. Last question.
I know this gets into a lot of what if, but if lawsuit isn't successful, what would that actually mean come the election in?
I think it would require the governor to call a special session to be able to deal with it. Because again, it comes down to funding, it comes down to resources, it comes to, which is different from the US Supreme Court case which we're facing right now. You know, in Washington, D.C., we hear the justices' questions, so we can start thinking ahead before the implementation of that decision among the Secretary of State's office and among the clerks to say what is the best way to make it the least burdensome on Nevada voters and to avoid the chaos that's coming. The Supreme Court decision is the supreme law of the land, and we have to follow it, whereas an executive order is something that we can challenge and have a voice about how it's received and how the courts can come back to the states and force us to implement. If it comes down to it, again, I think it's going to be a legislative session to discuss some of these policy issues so that we are absolutely clear to Nevada voters about what the rules are in our elections.
I have one last question about ballot harvesting, which is something that is a kind of.
That's a term you choose to use. That's a term that is a technical term in the election official space.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I mean, that if that's something that either of you think should have any sort of like changes around, because that's something that Republicans have consistently criticized, and wondering if that's something that you guys are.
Well, I think in the 24 election, I think that was occurring on the Republican side as well. It wasn't just a Democratic issue. In our office, the Secretary of State's office, we heard individuals went out to individuals' doors because voters do call and say, hey, this has occurred. Should I be aware? Should I be concerned? And I said, absolutely. The safest way for a person to get their vote to count is to either mail it in the postal service early before election day, or to take it on election day to a polling location and put it in.
And with that, thank you so much for coming out. Again, I want to commend our Secretary of State for his steadfast work on this. It is great, honestly, to have a partner who I know is going to stand up for the integrity of our election, stand up for every eligible voter in the state. And it's an honor to work with him on issues like this. I also want to thank my team, once again, Carol Ireland, who has worked tirelessly on issues like this. Thank you for your work, sir. And thank you, Greg, for being as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay.